You are listening to the AHO Radio Network with Outlier host John Krotec. My name is Jason Freebird Freeman, former professional boxer and mixed martial artist, cage fighter. On this special series, John and I will be discussing 4 boxing punches that helped shape my life. The jab, the cross, the hook, and the uppercut. If used effectively, these 4 boxing punches can shape your own life. Oh, by the way, my grandfather was Charles Manson, perhaps the most notorious cult figure in American history. I'll leave it at that. But thank you for listening to my story and supporting AHO Radio.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're glad that you're back with us on these special episodes of the AHO Radio Network. I'm John Krotec, and I'm with Jason Freebird Freeman here, who is the grandson of Charles Manson. What we're here to talk about is Jason's personal story and the punches that he uses as a metaphor to deal with the hardships and the traumas from his past, and how he was able to integrate these 4 punches. The jab was the first 2 episodes. Yes. This episode is going to be the cross, dealing with the past. And then we're going to get to the hook and the uppercut later.
Yes.
So on this episode, number 3, and I hope you listened to the first 2. And if you haven't, please go back and listen to those, because then you'll get the whole program. But on this one, the cross, tell us the backstory on that. When did you finally decide that enough was enough and that you weren't going to deal with the legacy of the past, your family name, which, by the way, was suicide, drug use, prison time, anger, rage, even murder, that was in your past? What was that, Jason? What's the story on that? When you decided to use the jab and the cross?
Dealing with my past, really, I was, at the time that I was living it, was my final time going back.
What do you mean?
Well, most of the time after high school, anytime I went to jail, I didn't have nothing to lose. There was nothing to lose, so it didn't mean nothing to me. Now that I was facing 3 to 5 years in prison, and I have a little daughter and a wife to go back home to after I get out, that changed everything.
So up until that time, you'd be going to jail for a little bit of time there, and it really didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Because you knew you were going to be getting back out and doing your thing.
Yep.
But now that karma, that ancestral trauma is starting to catch up with you.
Yeah.
Yes. Now it's the big house. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, the bigger house than
the smaller house. But and that was your epiphany moment then. You were going to finally decide to deal with your past.
I tell you what, it really started right before I hit the prison gates. Was I accepted Jesus Christ into my life.
How did that happen?
In the county jail. There was a gentleman that was always in his room. And I'm a curious guy, because everybody else is acting the same. I know what they're going to do when they get out. They're not going to change their walk or their way. I knew there was something more. I knew there was something different, but I didn't know what it was. And so something drew me over to this gentleman's cell, and as soon as I opened his door, I seen the Bible in his hand, and he's reading. And I asked him if I could come in. He said, "Yeah, man, come on in." And I asked him, "Well, why are you always in this room? You just come right back to this room." He said, "There's nothing out there for me." And I'm like, what's he mean? There's nothing out there.
So have you had any spiritual or religious stuff in your background before?
We went to church as kids. I went to a Catholic church with my grandmother, Shirley, multiple times, but nothing set in that I didn't know what spirituality was. Now,
so get back to the story. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to throw you off. So you're in the pokey, and you're talking to this guy, and you're getting ready to accept Christ. So what was his answers to you?
His was, he said, I'm a minister. He said, but I relapsed. I fell back. And he said, what really got me was when I was taking my mom's last piece of furniture out of her house to sell it for crack. And I looked at her and said, she asked him, "Son, will you please put the TV down?" he looked back at her and says, "Mom, I can't." He can't, because he was so stuck on that drug that
He'd even steal the television set out of his mom's house.
Yeah.
Wow, dealing with his own stuff.
Dealing with his own stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
So now this guy's sitting in jail. He knows Christ. I don't know what a God. I mean, I prayed to God, but I didn't feel or know anything. So he drew me into reading the book of John, and we actually prayed, and I accepted Christ into my life and asked for direction, because I was already going down a rough road, and it was getting rougher, and I knew something had to change, and that's where I started.
So there's that real epiphany moment.
Yeah.
And what's cool about that, a couple of things. First of all, God works in mysterious ways. We've heard that all of our lives, and here you go. We're on the ride now. So God came at that moment in your life. And the second thing that I think is important to note about Jason's story, tough guy that he is, the brawling sheepdog, he realizes that he can't face his demons alone, and that he can't do it on his own. And a higher power, we've all heard that, higher power, this is not like the Swami or anything. This is the higher power, is there to help him out. But he's making the decision himself. So you accepted Christ as your Savior.
Yeah.
This is before you went to prison.
Yep. This was right before I went to prison. Something had to change.
Yeah.
Something had to change. And
how did you feel, man, when you did that?
Oh, I felt like a new man. I couldn't stop crying that night.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's just a little prayer that I prayed, but like it came true. It was so hot in there. I just prayed and asked for air conditioner, and it was on that night.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to have a plan. So here you go. You accept Christ, and you feel great. You feel like, holy cow, I'm this new man.
Yeah. Of
transformed.
Course, I'm ready to get out now. I'm a transformed man, like we always.
And he's heading off to prison. So what's your plan?
Yeah.
Oh, I accept Christ. Great. That's very cool. Congratulations. Hallelujah.
Yeah. Right.
But now you're going off to prison. What the hell are you thinking? What's your plan?
Man.
You're going right back in again.
Yes. Yep.
How many years was it you were going?
It was 3 to 5 years. And it could have been well over 20 if it would have went a different direction.
Well, you were saying it was getting worse. I think, we don't need to go there, but I mean, so you accept Christ, which is a huge monumental thing for any believer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it all starts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you're in prison. What's going on with that? Tell us what your plan is. Did you keep your nose clean?
I tell you what, I was locked up to one of the biggest guys I've been beside. He looked like a NFL lineman. We had to strip down butt naked, shackled together. We had to get dressed together. We sat on the bus together. And he says, "It looks like you can take care of yourself well." I said, "Yeah, I do all right." And he said, he's like, "This is my 8th trip down here. I already got my people knowing I'm coming." He says, "If you just work out with me and that's it, don't talk to me, nothing outside of us working out, and don't show them what you got. Don't show anybody what you got. I'm gonna have a box full of food. As soon as you show up, you're set. Anything you need while you're here, you're set." And so I'm being guided in with one of the main guys from that prison that's going right
So
back.
he was connected already. I mean, he had to live.
Yeah.
It was all set up. So,
yeah.
So God put that guy there for you.
So when I went in there, he did say, too, find your people and stay with them, right? I seen a couple guys that I knew from back home. No. Why would I stand beside them? I'd rather fight with my back against the wall than watch some coward run whenever things get rough.
So the plan was to find your tribe, so to speak.
Yeah. And you know what my tribe was my feet hitting the ground every day over and over again, praying for just that next step.
So your tribe was God-driven.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was the only change. There wasn't no one in there that could create a better path for me than what God can.
So you go in with the plan. You've accepted Christ. You've made the decision to start throwing the cross, which is dealing with your past, right? And now you're in prison now, and possibly 3 years, maybe longer. You find your tribe, which is faith-based. And how did that help you to transform in prison?
What that helped with while I was locked up was it really opened up a great opportunity for me to see how Christ-like people live, because I had no clue what was on the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
So as I got there, of course, there was less and less people when you jump over on the other side, especially when you're locked up. So I went straight to the chapel. I didn't know where else to go because my people weren't there. I was told by the African American guy that I went in with to keep my distance, watch your back. He says, I got your back, but you can't let no one know that. So I was there by myself. And the only thing I had to lean on was asking God for the next step in the vision of what my future is going to look like, because I have a little daughter. I've got a wife. So there was a lot of changing in that year and a half that I spent behind bars.
So, you're dealing with the legacy of the Manson family, this trauma that goes over and over and over, generations of it. You accept Christ. You have this plan that's laid out for you. This guy's kind of telling you how to deal with it on the inside. And then you're making this personal transformation with your tribe of true believers. I'm trying to recap this.
Yep.
So, were you conflicted at all about if you were doing the right thing, or did you struggle with a lot of this? I mean, obviously, when you can't call your own shots and you're stuck in jail, it's a conflict in and of itself. But can you relay any kind of conflicts that were going on, or were there any?
There really wasn't any conflicts on the inside of me, because I was so used to living in the world that accepting Christ into my life and seeing him work in my life, I felt he didn't move fast enough. He didn't work fast enough. I wanted that change now.
Isn't that always the case, though? Sometimes when we're thinking,
I need this now.
What the hell are you doing? Why aren't you helping me out now? I need you now. And
yep.
So it had to come of it must have been a huge shock to you finally to realize that you were going to deal with the Manson name.
That was the hardest part, was knowing that something had to change, and that something was me, because of what the future is going to bring. And if this is my action, this is me, and this is what I portray onto my family, I stay in that losing battle. I stay right in there.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned family, because when we talk about not being able to do things on our own, and God is certainly a huge part of it for a lot of people, but family too.
Yes.
And that you were wise enough and committed enough, even though you were in some heavy stress, to realize that the family was another turning point in your life.
Was. Yep.
Yeah. So that's pretty inspirational. And, again, the second punch is the cross. And every single one of us has a past to deal with. None of us can escape those people in our lives that came here before us. And, we talked about this earlier, Jason, that everybody's got this story to tell. And
yes. What
do you hope to do with that story, with the cross?
My hope is to let people see that it's not too late to get up off the canvas. It's never too late to relight your candle, relight your spirit, to have the right people stand there with you, instead of the same repetitive confusion that our world tends to cling to, because we don't know a way out, and we're not willing to step out in faith and say, let me try this, let me see what happens if I want God to help me make the right choices, instead of saying the church walls will fall down.
Yeah.
Because I I hear excuse after excuse after excuse whenever people come to me wanting change. And when I show them how I changed, they can't accept that. They don't want to have a God rolling over top of them and pointing what they should and shouldn't be doing. But that's not the case.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. And I'm glad that you pointed out a few different things here for people listening, watching our conversation. Commitment, humility, believing that there is something better, wanting to actually put a stop to it, to the past that haunts every single one of us. And don't kid yourself. We all got a past, and we're either dealing with it like Jason is talking about, or you're not dealing with it. And gosh, it is very inspirational to hear your story and to understand how you've been able to implement these punch metaphors to get on with your life. And so, of course, this is the first part of the cross, episode 3, here with Jason Freebird Freeman, the grandson of Charles Manson, with a plan of overcoming extreme hardships through the power of God, but also a willingness and a commitment to be real with his story and to use it as a catalyst for himself primarily, but also for others to move in to the next phase in their lives. So catch us on the next episode coming up. I think this is episode number 4, the cross, dealing with your past. And
yep.
What we're going to talk about on that one is how the fighter in Jason dealt with the past when he was in prison. Give me that look again, Jason. Give me the look.
I was in prison. There was some good stuff.
when he does that stuff, I swear it cracks me up. And, he can do all the crazy stuff he wants, but when you really meet this guy, what you realize, first of all, is that he is authentic as they come. And that's why we have these shows, is so we can tell these human interest stories. And again, great to have you here, Jason. Let's go to the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to my Decide to Fight story. My name is Jason Freebird Freeman, the grandson of Charles Manson. I hope you join John and myself for another episode of Decide to Fight on AHO Radio, the place where we engage in real conversations without all the hype.